Hey, good folks. Dr. Charlie Brown here. Welcome to today. I'm so glad you're joining me for those of you who are joining live and for those of you who are joining in at a later date. Let's take our 3 deep breaths and then we'll talk about today's Charlie Chats. What's really been on my mind and my spirit as number one, as the police in the United States, as elsewhere, but in the United States where I currently live, as they continue to kill unarmed Black and brown people over and over again, and also the rising rates, the astronomical rates really of suicide, anxiety, and depression for people, I'd say 35 and under, and how all of these play into what I think is a lack of having a core sense of self. One of my colleagues mentioned to me, we were talking about our research topics as, as PhDs do. We were talking about what my dissertation topic was, what his dissertation topic was, and he said something that has stuck with me ever since, and so I'm considering possibly looking further into in a research aspect as well. But he said he doesn't think kids today have a core sense of self. And as I've been thinking about that, I think he's right. But I also think that that's true for adults, that we don't have a core sense of ourselves. There's so many different pieces of media, of technology that are coming at us constantly. Social media, where I am right now, I do understand the irony there, of course. But social media, where I am right now, we get to see a highlight reel of other people's lives. And with that highlight reel, we don't, well, I would actually say it's one extreme or another. Most people document either all of the negative things or all of the positive things that are happening in their lives. And so the highlight reel is very skewed, it's very biased. Whereas really and truly, each of us has ups and downs. We have good days, we have not so good days, we have terrible days. We have days where we just want to hide in the closet or underneath the covers. For people who have depression and anxiety and suicide ideation, the days where they want to hide are probably much greater than other people. But looking at being bombarded with news of 10-year-olds committing suicide because they've been bullied, where does bullying come from? Bullying has always come from a lack of a sense of self. And now that is exacerbated by our use of technology and how technology is an appendage, or like an appendage of our identity, for many people who are under the age of maybe 25, maybe 30. My girls in my dissertation study taught me that, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that they considered it a genuine and true aspect of their identities. So that again coincided with my colleague telling me how he thinks children don't have a sense of self. I think it's also true for adults, that we're searching and searching for a profitable idea for those entrepreneurs, for a work-life balance for people who work more traditional 9-ish to 5-ish jobs. But we're all burnt out. We're all receiving information at unprecedented levels when we were already receiving billions of bits of information per millisecond, and now we've enhanced that even further with the use of daily technology. I know that I feel it right here at the back of my neck, where my neck fuses with my spinal cord, and I feel it when I've been on technology for too long. It's as if it has intercepted in and integrated in a bad way, in a negative way for me, integrated into my nervous system, and it makes me a little frenetic. Technology specifically, when I've been on a phone or a computer too long in any given day, that's where I feel it. I feel it right here at the base of my neck. But really thinking about how, with so much technology, we lack a core self. Bullying comes from, traditionally, I've talked about bullying maybe not in a video. I've talked about it in print elsewhere, where I delineate bullying into two specific types. One, a bullying because you can, which is sort of the new school kind of bullying, and one, the bullying because you've been bullied, and this is a way for you to exert control over some aspect of your life when perhaps the rest of the aspects of your life you don't have any control. Pardon me, you don't have any control over. And so we utilize that sort of control for bullying. Now, bullying as a catchphrase, as a buzzword, kids are talking about that at unprecedented levels too. And again, it comes from not having a core sense of self and not knowing how to get through difficult things. I describe millennials and younger. I'm very technically a millennial. Millennials and younger, I describe them as, if we think about what their defining aspects were of their lives, of their generation, as we'll call it, millennials and younger. So that's Generation Z and whatever we're calling, 10-year-olds these days, where they got a trophy for just showing up. They had instantaneous access to the rightest, most correct information in the world at their fingertips simultaneously. This was also an era of helicopter parenting where parents did everything for them in many regards. And we have found there are studies that show that technology is as addictive as opioids. So we're going to call that a generation of addicts. And they don't know how to get through hard things because things have been A, handed to them, and B, they got a trophy just for showing up. So emoting at a deep level, at a meaningful level, is very, very difficult. In addition to technology being a veritable appendage to their identity. So we have a generation of addicts with no coping skills who don't know how to get through hard things. Of course, their rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide are astronomical. That makes sense if you frame it that way. So, but kids learn from the adults around them. That's what I also know. I worked with kids for 20 plus years, and that's what I know. I know that showing up is 90% of what you need to do. And you need to show up over and over and over and over again, no matter how often or unoften that your youth, your child, no matter how much they show up, you need to be there when they do show up. And that they model the people around them. They model the people who are parenting them in one way or another, whether that's actual parents or people they hang out with or an after school program. I understand that this is getting long, but this has been on my spirit. So showing up for kids, they learn from the adults around them. And what that means is that we as adults are lacking a core sense of self. And I can see that in kind of my friend group. I can see that with people I know who struggle with perpetual anxiety, depression, and sometimes suicide ideation. It has been very difficult to have people who are very, very close to me be on active suicide watches. So really, looking at ourselves and how do we find a core sense of self? How do we do things that are meaningful for us? And honestly, I would say that one way to do that is to maybe turn media off, to let your nervous system and let your own body reset itself to its own natural rhythms. Of course, we have jobs and of course we have obligations and things that have to be done in the world. We have to show up in certain spaces in certain ways at certain times. Yes, all of that is true. And really taking time to get back to yourself. I don't know what that means for you. I don't always know what it means for me because it changes. But really taking that time to find who you are and coming back to your core self and figuring out what and who is your core self and how you can have that person show up more often in the world. Because when we do that as adults, children see that, youth see that, and as a collective, perhaps our suicide rates go down, start to go back down. Our rates of anxiety and depression start to go back down. We're overstimulated, so unsaturating yourself from stimuli, going in nature. Nature stimulates you in a different way, but it's usually a helpful way, rather than technology, which can be harmful when we're overexposed to it. I would also highly suggest sleeping in a different room than your telephone and your electronic devices, not doing those things in bed before you go to bed, before you go to sleep. They disrupt your nervous system in very measurable ways. So this is a lot. I'd love your input on this. What do you think? What do you find to be the core of yourself, or what do you think it helps make up the core of all of ourselves and all of our identities. And how can we teach this to not only ourselves, how can we model it within ourselves? How can we also teach it to the children around us so that we stop hearing reports of 10-year-olds committing suicide because they've been bullied and they feel like their world has ended for this one thing that they don't know how to get through as a generation of addicts. So that's a lot. Let's take 3 more deep breaths to begin to start integrating that information. And I really would love your comment on this. I've thought about it at length, but it does take a village. And so I'm very interested to know what the rest of the village has to say about this. All right, let's take 3 deep breaths as we close out today. I want you to feel the breath leaving your body. I want you to pull the breath in from your surroundings. Breathe in. And let all this leave your body in the hopes of finding workable solutions. One more time. Let's breathe in. This time I want you to see a cord coming from the bottom of your pelvis out your tailbone into the ground, and breathe all this energy down into the earth. All right, good folks, I know this is a bit of a long one and a bit of a serious topic, but I am glad and grateful that you've joined me today. And let's see how we can connect. Let's see how we can make a future that's better than what we have right now. I'm Dr. Charli. I will see you again soon. Take great care.